in this silent moment.
my exclusion. Many years before I became a member of this church, I had attended several events here, the Spirituality of Music concerts, and also in supporting the mobile shower units, haircuts, and in providing clothing. While having pizza with my friend Reverend Dwight one night, I asked him what a congregational church was, as I did not know, but was attracted to what the church was doing in support of the local community. He did not say, "Come join our church. We're doing things the right way." He listened to where I was spiritually and did invite me to consider attending a service, which I did. I found the service to be dramatically different from the more rigid Mass I was accustomed to, and to be honest, found it a bit odd, as it was far from what any expectation I had it would be. As I've done in many areas of my life, I allowed myself to be a bit uncomfortable. As life has shown me, growth often follows. I attended several more worship services and eventually made the decision to become a member. Why I stay here is for the same reason that drew me here. It's what this church does. It's more powerful than any words, actually. What the church does is in direct support of the word spoken, and how amazingly beautiful is that? I must also share that I get saddened when I see the continual low attendance. There is simply too much to celebrate together, and I pray that the day comes when the church is full each Sunday. I do not view this as the job of the Reverend to make that so. It is up to me as a member. What actions am I taking to attract people to come? Am I inviting people to join me? Am I going out into the community and letting people know all the wonderful things the church does and letting them know that they are welcome regardless of their faith? The answer to this question is I am not, but I do have the desire to. It is my belief this is what we are called to do as people of faith. The answer is not to let him or her take care of it. I must always look at the person in the mirror. I commit to being here in person every Sunday that I am able to. Will you join me whether you are sitting here in person today or attending from a reasonable distance via Zoom? Will you invite and or bring somebody? How wonderful it will be for this beautiful place to be full on Sundays. This is why I'm still here. How about you? And in closing, not something I was planning to say, but it struck me on my way in today. You know, one of the things that really makes me feel wonderful when I arrive is the greeting I get by Jose every Sunday, opening the door and telling me to have a beautiful day, and he calls me by name. You know, that is just a beautiful thing, and I hope you find that beautiful as well.
Oh, good, they're coming in the front pew. I thought they were walking out in protest. Okay, good. She can come if she wants to or stay there. That's okay, Ann. Okay, so we just heard Dennis Sinnott, who's a member of the congregation, talk about how he got here and why he stays here. And I noticed when he sent that to me and I read it, that he talks a lot about the community and the church as a part of the community. And in Jesus, we're doing the Old Testament until Christmas, and then after Christmas we'll start with the New Testament. So in the New Testament, in the Gospel of Matthew, which you'll learn about, chapter 25, Jesus says, "When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. When I was sick, you comforted me." And he goes on. So whenever you treat anybody like that, it's as if you are not as if, you are treating and helping the Christ within them. So community is extremely important, especially when you say Congregational Church of Patchogue. Congregation is a community. So just the name of the church demands that we be responsive to a community. Otherwise, and the rules are written by our community. Guess how I got here, got this job? I got voted in, just like the election coming up on Tuesday. I got voted in by the community, by the congregation. Not every faith tradition. We don't have bishops who say, Dwight, you go there and serve those people. You'd be great over there. Okay, you've been there long enough. Somebody else is going to take that over because we want you to do something over here in Queens. We don't have somebody that does that. It's all the community, the congregation that are so important. And as a reflection of that, yesterday I went to a training, and twice a year, the United Church of Christ, in which I'm ordained, this group of churches gets together and has a meeting about what's going on. And the presenter came to us through Zoom from California, a well-known writer about churches and stuff. And almost everything that he was highlighting, 5 churches around the country that he thinks out of the hundreds that he deals with and writes for, that he thought were doing really well, even though the pandemic and even though not a lot of people go to church nowadays. And every single one of them, they were doing well because of what they were doing for or with the community. One of them, believe it or not, if you want to know more about this, tell me later. So help me God. I'm looking at you, Stephen, because I think you'll like this. One of the ministries of the church is mud wrestling. Mud wrestling. And not all of them... I'll stop right there because I could go on a tangent like you would not believe. But it was true. And then another one was this, helping people deal with AIDS or something, very health. But it was always in the community, and how it had elevated the church beyond the way they saw themselves. There's this little pocket on Main Street where you can't see in the windows and you can't see out of the windows. We're just here for ourselves. It's not true in the churches who were surviving. And so I had applied for, on behalf of the church, and received a grant from the United Church of Christ Suffolk Association of $400 to help us with the barber shop, because we need, I don't ask our congregation for money, we need, all those old chemicals where you disinfect the combs and all that stuff. Clipper batteries are dead, on and on and on. They might need a third chair because they have 2 chairs back there because of the people love that. They gave us $400 for our barbershop. And then I was thinking that when I was handing out brochures, and some of us here were at the Hispanic parade, which was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Young, healthy, attractive people doing in South American clothing, doing these dances on Main Street, and it was just unbelievable parade. And we were there giving away lunches and giving away groceries. And the bank next door, the Chase Bank, was giving away groceries also in cooperation with Village Walk, which is the assisted living place where the old folks live, right next to the bank over there. You ever seen it? It's the big building you see right when you walk out into the parking lot. They were there doing it with the bank, and I handed them a flyer. Well, first of all, I said, can we park in your parking space? I said, well, actually, we're doing something also, but sure, go ahead. So we let the bank cars park in a parking space, and we walked by, and I started talking to the bankers because I know them. And they introduced me to somebody from Village Walk, and I handed them a brochure in Spanish and English, and telling them, it's not just today for the parade, but you can come to the soup kitchen, the food pantry, the mobile shower unit, the barber shop. And they went, oh, okay. And then I got an email or text yesterday when I was at this event learning about community that Village Walk wants to not only serve the soup kitchen dinner, but cater it. They're going to cook all the food, because they cook all the food over there. It's really good food in that assisted living place, and bring all of the prepared meal over and feed everybody in the soup kitchen. They heard about us through a Hispanic parade, and I was just trying to help people who don't have enough to eat. And Village Walk and the bank got talking apparently after I left by giving them a brochure, and said, we want to be a part of that. And then 2 more things briefly. One more thing. This coming Wednesday, they're providing a soup kitchen meal, Village Walk. I don't even think they've ever been here. I'm going to go over and meet them, of course, tomorrow and thank them. And then we're doing a fundraiser next Thursday here for the soup kitchen, which you've been hearing about and reading about forever and ever in your bulletin, because we don't have any money other than the money we get from the people. We do not get 5 cents from the church. We get the use of the room and the lighting and the water and things that we use here, which is great. So we're doing a fundraiser there. But then somebody else who was trying to get here, and he's not here, he's 15 years, 20 years younger than me, and he's got very serious cancer. And the treatment isn't going well. So he has to go back into the hospital for a week, Tuesday. But before he went for a week and then a 3-month recurrence just to see if he might live, he wanted to make sure that our soup kitchen people, this is breaking my heart, it's so beautiful, have something to eat. How much does it cost for Thanksgiving dinner? And I knew from last Thanksgiving, so I texted him the answer, and he said, "Is that all?" And then I knew he would do this. He PayPal'd the money, and it was 35% higher than what I had told him the price was going to be. So I said, $200. So he gave us $300. He came here a couple times. He's not thrilled with it. Church isn't his thing, but boy, does he love the things that we do, which is what Dennis kept him coming back. It was the actions matched the words that you were hearing. Anybody can go up and say peace, love, forgiveness, but if you're not embodying it, nobody cares what you're saying. For all the saints. Come on, you don't even say hello to the fact that the custodian is the greeter. That's what, he didn't say, by the way, Dwight's sermons are unbelievable. You notice that? Was I shocked? No. He went crazy over Jose being the greeter back there. Yes, sir. He always calls you sir. For 10 years, he's been calling me sir. I said, would you stop that? Yes, sir. I'll stop that. Yes, sir. Open the door, even the greeter, the way he's greeted, the way he's welcomed, the way you might go out of your way to say something to Dennis, pray God about what, thank you. Because he wrote that. He nurtured it. He said, yes, I'll do it. He always says yes, Dennis does. Except for when I wanted a $50 loan, but that's another story. So those are the things that are important. However, it's not just what we do out there in the world for others. It's what we do for ourselves. That's not wrong. That's not the wrong way to be church. That's the way to congregate also. That we share in our joys. We share in our pains. I have a very bad stiff neck. A couple people have said, you're not moving right. And I said, yeah, I can't wait to go home when I can take the meds because they're going to knock me out. So I can't take them now. And la-di-da. And then somebody else is not feeling well. We got to talking. So we care for each other. We ask, how are you doing? We say, thank you for reading that. That must have taken you a while to write that, to jump up and read something like that. He's not a preacher, you know. And one of the things we do is All Saints Day. Because, yeah, it's good to do the community, but if you're not doing things for the community and you're trying to keep hiding your light under the bushel, as Jesus says, that's not going to work. Because if you've got a light, let it shine. Let people know what's going on. Invite them. Bring them in for the music. Bring them in for the different series. But also, you can't only be out there doing things for other people and not taking care of your own. And one thing the church does is we remember. Sounds like big deal, right? We remember. And one of the things we remember is where we came from, what we've been through, that we were the people, that we were banished from Eden, that in the book of Exodus we're getting into soon, that Pharaoh had us enslaved and we broke free. but we also remember people who have died in the last year. Because it happens, but you're not always forgotten. So today, you're going to be seeing where we have 4 people this year who have departed us in bodily life. And we're going to read their names, and someone will either come forward and light the candle for them, or else we will light it on their behalf because the family members aren't present. And then we have the little candles, which are for people who don't have someone who died this year but want to light a candle. We've had people light candles for pets. For someone that didn't die just in the last year, they might have died in the last year and a month, but their heart's still broken. There's some of that pain and missing. It's just a way of honoring, just lighting a candle, putting some light in the world. So that's what we're going to be doing at All Saints' Day. And now, as I wander back up to the pulpit, we're going to have the ushers pass the baskets so that the mission and the ministries of this church, as well as the candle buying for All Saints' Day, can continue now and well into the future. As the baskets are being passed to confirmation class, this Tuesday, Mr. Craig is coming in, and we're going to be talking about music, particularly they're going to be playing some music. We got some instruments, but also the Psalms were originally music. They were sung, or at least read in community. They were not written to be read alone. And so we'll have Mr. Craig. Everybody is very excited about him. They don't mind it that I'm going to be there, but they love it that he is. And we'll be doing the music. And then the week after that, we're taking the confirmation class to Kristallnacht celebration at St. Joseph's College, which is the remembrance that goes on every year, which is the unofficial beginning of the Holocaust. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But in the meantime, confirmation class has a lot of interesting things ahead of it. We've also, post-COVID here, so to speak, you know what I mean, post the era, have returned to a lot of the things, we're trying it out anyway, the call to worship. Will, is the call to worship on screen or no? Unison readings on the screen. Okay, so forgive me out there in Facebookistan, but we're working on that also. So let us read responsively and aloud the call to worship together. It's printed in the first inside page of your morning bulletin. O God, we give you thanks for the rest in this past night. Grant that we may pass this hour in perfect peace with you. And now we will lift our voices, hearts, and eyes unto the hills to worship the Lord, from whom all blessings flow. There is a hymn, the lyrics here, that are inside your bulletin, and they're on screen also, for all the saints. If you might be familiar with the tune, if not, just listen to the first verse and join us, and or just listen to all the verses as we begin now. If you wish to get a little break from give your knees a little exercise, you may stand and sing this hymn together, if able, and if not, you're perfectly welcome to remain seated.
Steadfast faith confess, your name
There is a unison reading that is on screen as well as in your bulletin this morning. It's titled A Unison Reading for All Saints' Day, which I invite us to join in together. Jesus called together the disciples, read along please, and a great multitude of other people, just like you and me. And there he touched, healed, and taught them. He called them blessed and referred to them as saints of the faith. May God bring us together now as God did to those so long ago, so that we may discover the blessed people in our memory and in our midst. Today in this place, let us remember and celebrate the children of God who have left in this past year. Mickey Tom, legally named Harold Tom, Mickey Tom, died on Christmas Eve. It was a beautiful, strange occasion at that moment, but it was as she had wished. She had had enough, she was tired, she got her wishes. She passed away. A member of this church for many years, Mickey Tom.
My daughter, Wanda Searles.
I didn't know until we did his funeral here that William Lawrence Underwood. Who's that? I could suspect, but to us he was Bill Underwood. He was a member of this church his whole 94 years and went on to become New York State Supreme Court Justice and big commitment to the Patchogue Fire Department. And after Sunday here, he would go, as he said, I'm going to my other church. And he would go to the fire department where he would sit down and they would bring him a cup of coffee and a fried egg sandwich. This is for William Lawrence Underwood, Jr. The final person who has passed in this year is William Craig Jenkins, Jr., passed on May 17th, 2022. In this church, on All Saints' Day, we also remember and celebrate, as I mentioned a moment ago, to the younger ones in our midst. We also remember and celebrate the life of those who departed from earthly existence since last All Saints' Day, who were not directly or recently affiliated with the church. We hope, believe, and pray that they too have come to be restored to wholeness and rest. The gift of someone you love is not confined to the last 365 days. The gift of someone you love is indeed timeless, like the Holy Spirit. The loss of them is eternal. Who knows when Dolly will put in the past the death of her daughter? I cannot imagine it would be. The loss of them is eternal, and the memory of them is forever. So those who remain here, I invite you now to come forward and to light a votive candle for the one whom you love, and then you may return to your seats.
We are lighting this candle for Great Grandma Helen and for Nana.
For great grandma Helen and for Nana.
It's for my boy.
It's for her boys, her two sons. Somebody sit with her, okay, when she goes back to her seat?
William Charles Corwin, Jr., beloved uncle, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather.
For my sister, Anna Marie Gubitosi.
To my wife, Patricia Harrop.
From my nephew, Douglas Smith.
For my grandson and my two sons.
For Edith, our great-grandmother.
For my daughter, Joanna Licata, and also my mother, Lee.
For my daughter, forever, Maya, 6 years old, who through the donation of her body, 2 children lived and were saved from multiple annual surgeries. also printed in this morning's bulletin, and I invite you to turn to it now. Well, actually, why don't we also, I just noted Pastor Dwight. Oh, that's me. I'm supposed to read that. I wonder who he is. I'm telling you, got a stiff neck here and a stiff mind. Why don't we turn my saying into, let's recite it together. In this church, on All Saints' Day, we also remember and celebrate the lives. Oh, didn't I already say that? Sorry, I'm very disoriented. I don't want to keep doting on this, but I'm very disoriented by the amount of pain I'm in. So I'm sorry. I think we're in due for a beautiful musical offering that reflects upon this moment, All Things Must Pass, by George Harrison and performed now by Craig Coyle.
Sunrise doesn't last all morning. The cloudburst doesn't last all day. It seems my love is up and has left you with no warning. It's not always gonna be this great. Must pass. All things must pass away. Sunset doesn't last all evening. A mind can blow those clouds away. After all this, my love is up and must be leaving. It's not always gonna be this great. All things must pass. All things must pass away. Another day. Now the darkness only stays the night time. In the morning it will fade away. Daylight is good at arriving at the right time. It's not always gonna be this great. All things must pass. All things must pass away. All things must pass. All things must pass away.
Once upon a time, the disciples were following Jesus around in very uncertain times. Their land had been occupied by an invading army who demanded they couldn't even use their own coins. They had to use the coins of the kingdom with Caesar on it. And so they exchanged those coins before people could go into the temple, converting the pagan invading army Roman coins for the land, the people Israel. People didn't know up from down. There are false prophets running all around the place. There are many would-be, wannabe messiahs in those times, simultaneously walking around Israel. I'm the Messiah, follow me. Well, I just saw you slap your kid. I don't think I'm following you anywhere. And then what about this one? I think he's hallucinating. What about this one? So Jesus was one of many, and then all of a sudden the word began to spread. And they didn't know what to do. They didn't even know who they were following or where it was leading. They thought it would be a glorious end. And it was in a way, but not for them. They didn't even know how to pray. Jesus, how do we pray? Well, say this, and let us now pray aloud and together one of probably 1,000 different translations of this prayer, using whatever words with which you may be most familiar or that speak to your heart as we pray aloud and together the words that Jesus taught to the original disciples. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I just had my blessed moment hearing these two girls reciting the Lord's Prayer back to me. I thought, I'll keep this. All things must pass. I hope that doesn't pass for me. We're approaching Advent. We're not approaching Easter. And this is the birth of Christ, not the crucifixion of Christ. But once upon a time, Jesus made this triumphal entry into Jerusalem. And people were throwing their cloaks down in front of his donkey. Throngs and throngs of people were there. Well, they had come to Jerusalem, and Jesus was coming to Jerusalem with his entourage, his disciples, when everybody else was also. So if I stand in front of the parade, I could say, well, they're all here because of me. We don't know that, because we know that Jesus came during Passover week, as many people did. And then Jesus took his church to an upper room to have the Passover meal. And we know that with the throngs and thousands coming to Jerusalem, and some people want you to think, I don't believe it and I don't care, that they're all there because of Jesus. Well, they were there because of Passover. And then we see that night, there's less than a dozen of them in a room. It didn't matter. 2,000 years later, that room lives, the upper room. 2,000 years later, that way of remembering the Christ in our midst. 2,000 years later, I am now preaching to perhaps more people than Jesus did. What matters is the Spirit. What is eternal is the Christ, the Anointed One, the Messiah, the Son of God. Millions of different ways to describe the indescribable that we have arrived at. And Jesus said, knowing this ain't going to last, this is how I want you to remember me. With a piece of bread and a cup of wine. No water, because the water was too dirty and poisonous to drink. But everybody had wine, because in the fermentation of it, a lot of the antigens were killed off. So with bread and juice, or bread and wine, in other words, a bit to eat, the most simple thing, a bit to drink. Do this to remember me in the most simplest of actions, in the simplest little things. A cup of cool water to somebody who's thirsty. How telling someone that you're offering a container of soup on the front steps of a church will result a couple weeks later with them sponsoring a dinner for the entire gathering of people, no matter how many they would be, they're in. Thus grows the Spirit. They weren't listening to a sermon about poverty or how you should really care. They picked up on the Spirit. The Spirit is communicated through us in the most simplest of terms. And that is what we see in this meal. We in this faith tradition and we in this church have what is called an open communion table. Dennis mentioned having been raised Catholic. There are people of other faith traditions here, Jewish, people who aren't certain what they believe. What we do know is the table is open to all who want to come and partake of it. And we are told that on the night before he died, Maundy, Thursday, the night of the Passover, the Last Supper, whatever words we want for that, Jesus, as I just said, took the bread that had form and weight and was out there in the world just like him. Form and weight and out there in the world, and soon it was going to disappear. And Jesus blessed the bread, thanked God, and then broke the bread in the same way that the next day he too would be broken. Do this, just this, in remembrance of me. And in the same way, Jesus took the cup and he said, this is the new covenant. Things will be different now. You will see and you will live into how different things are going to be, congregating as church without me, but you congregate, you will. Gather without me, but gather you will. And when you do so, in your midst is my living Spirit. This is the new covenant, poured out for you. Now, with the bread and the cup of blessing, the staff of life, the body and the blood of the Christ himself, we partake of the service of communion or Eucharist or Holy Supper or whatever word you may wish to use. Come, Holy Spirit, come to us. Be a presence in our midst. Grant us the strength and the vision and the wisdom and the serenity to endure all that we will endure, to see all there is to be seen, all there is to be heard. Help us reach back into the saints of this faith tradition, those represented on the table of burning lights, those represented as spirits within this walls, some of those whose names are etched into windows around here. Since 1793, we have been gathering in your name, and we ask that you bless us and come to us in this moment. The people of God gathered together in the service of God. Come, for all things are ready. We invite you now to come forward and take a cup of the juice and a cup with a breadcrumb in it, and I'm hoping that there is a garbage can here, and then return to your seats. Come at your leisure. Loving God, you have gathered us from north and south, east and west. You have gathered us from the past, the present. Beckon us into the future. You give us visions of what will be. You're with us in this moment. Help us to be with you as we have tried in this moment of remembrance. We remember you. You remember us. And in this remembering, we are strengthened to go forth into our destiny, no matter where it may be, knowing that whatever life has to offer us, we are strengthened through the feast we have just participated in and shared. The feast of body, mind, and spirit, the continuation of eternity in our midst. Help us to be a living, loving presence in this world as you were. Amen.